It's often the case that I avoid some stories. I just don't care to talk about them, but we've got two. We've got two different stories about Kamala Harris lying, I guess, according to various news outlets. I don't want to get sued, but it's kind of funny and also kind of interesting that we've got someone being called out so quickly in the 2020 race. So this story first from the New York Times. Now, first of all, this story was picked up by a ton of conservative outlets, but the fact that the New York Times published it, I thought it warranted a discussion, which is why I said, okay, we've got these two stories. Let's go for it. Kamala Harris was accused of lying about listening to Tupac and Snoop Dogg. The truth is more complicated. I'm not so sure it is. There's always some nuance, but let's see what happened. It began as a lighthearted moment. Senator Kamala Harris, the California Democrat and former prosecutor who announced her presidential candidacy last month, revealed on a popular radio show this week that she had smoked marijuana during her college years at Howard University in Washington. Let's stop here real quick because there's also a lot of criticism of her because I think she was attorney general. She worked in government where they prosecuted people for smoking. I love when politicians admit to breaking the law and at the same time upholding a system which punishes people for who break those same laws. All that Kamala Harris did when she said she smoked pot was admit that there's rules rules for thee but not for me. Yes, you're allowed to break the law. If Kamala Harris were busted for smoking, they would not be politicians. They would never be where they are. And that's complete and utter crap. Okay? How many good people committed a nonviolent offense, smoked a little weed, minding their own business, chilling out after a hard day's work, and they got in trouble for it? How many young people in New York? There's a huge problem with stop and frisk in New York where they're stopping young black people and then finding pot and using that as justification for arrest and ticketing. And when you overwhelmingly apply stop and frisk to certain neighborhoods, yes, it starts pushing on certain, you'll start seeing numbers go up, and this pushes a racist narrative. I'm not trying to get into that whole thing. Let's continue. I just take issue with politicians who think they're allowed to break the law and everyone else isn't. But maybe she was lying. After a viral tweet ignited backlash from marijuana activists and conservatives, Ms. Harris faces accusations that she fabricated parts of her story. In the midst of answering simultaneous questions about what music she listens to, she appeared to some to say she listened to rap artists like Tupac and Snoop Dogg as she smoked in college. I mean, that's pretty much what she did. Though neither released an album until after she graduated. She's trying to pretend like she's down with the kids, but she is not. Conservative news outlets feasted on what they portrayed as an embarrassing gaffe, with the popular morning show Fox and Friends even dedicating a segment to it Wednesday morning. And then me today. Isn't that funny? Less partisan media outlets also publicized supposed controversy, with some alleging that it was further proof Ms. Harris, who is likely the most viable black woman ever to run for president, was playing up parts of her identity in order to impress black voters. I think that's fair to say. I mean, come on. The only problem, Ms. Harris's campaign vehemently denies that she ever claimed to be listening to Tupac or Snoop Dogg while in college, and in a video recording of the radio interview provides additional context that may support the account. They say she appeared on Monday Morning, The Breakfast Club, and we can wrap this. I got another story here. They say it's from the Daily Caller that WAPO has fact-checked her tax refund lie, but let's see what happened. Charlemagne the God, one of the show's hosts, asked Ms. Harris if she had ever smoked marijuana herself, a question presidential candidates have long been loath to answer. Ms. Harris confidently said she had, adding, I did inhale. It was a long time ago. Later in the interview, Ms. Harris was asked about her taste in music. She previously named California artists like Tupac and Snoop Dogg among her favorites. What does Kamala Harris listen to? Asked DJ Envy, another one of the show's hosts. Before Ms. Harris answered the question, Charlemagne the God interjected, asking her to say what she listened to while she smoked in college. Everyone laughed before DJ Envy appeared to return to his original question. Was it Snoop, he asked. Oh yeah, definitely Snoop. Ms. Harris said Tupac for sure. Chaos ensued. The viral tweet pointed out that Snoop Dogg and Tupac did not debut until Ms. Harris had left college. Then music blogs and conservative outlets began to write up the exchange. However, several of them omitted the fact that DJ Envy had asked Ms. Harris more generally about her music opinions. But hold on. She was asked, what did she listen to while she smoked in college? Then someone said, then the other guy said, was it Snoop? And she said, yes. Sounds pretty cut and dry. Now, look, why is this news? I mean, I understand we're trying to break through whether or not this candidate's misrepresenting who she is and whether or not she's lying to people to garner support. But come on, man. It was a rough conversation, but there's a reason why I wanted to bring this up. How many times did I say the media will find anything on these candidates and run wild. Look what happened with Pete Hegseth, who made a joke about not washing his hands. Clearly the dude washes his hands. Is it a joke? Come on, everybody washes their... And he said germs weren't real because he couldn't see them. Clearly joking. Media goes nuts. If the media is going to latch onto something as innocuous and stupid as a joke like that, what do you think they're going to do when they're having a loose conversation and she just throws out some names like, oh, I listen to these people for sure. Maybe she wasn't even referring to what she was doing in college. Maybe she didn't care. Maybe she thought it was a nonsense conversation. Think about that. They will go after every single thing these Democrats do. Trump has one advantage. His supporters don't care. They hate the media. Not all of the media, but a lot of them. Trump supporters, for the most part, are like, yeah, it's fake news, whatever. I'm over it. You beat someone over the head so often with ridiculous stories, eventually they say, I just don't care anymore. I just don't. Say whatever you want. I'm done. Well, the Democrats aren't in that position. So when this happens, it was the left. It was journalists and conservatives at the same time. You know what that means? Trump can say something, the left will yell at him. Conservatives don't care. The left will say something and conservatives will join in. Look at Ralph Northam. You got conservatives going like, oh yeah, clapping for the Democrats who are eating at their own party. Now, again, I mean, maybe I'm not saying the Democrats shouldn't. I'm just saying if Republicans don't. Well, let's read this other story too, because it's not the only time that apparently Kamala Harris has been accused of lying. This from the Daily Wire. WAPO actually fact checks Kamala Harris tax refund lie. Fact checkers have been notoriously left-leaning in their insistence on nitpicking things Republicans say while ignoring major lies by Democrats. For example, on Monday, the Washington Post fact checker refused to give Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez any Pinocchios for her blatantly false claims about her Green New Deal FAQ. Instead, the checker went after President Trump. But also on Monday, the Post decided to actually fact-check leading 2020 nominee Kamala Harris over a tweet claiming that Trump's tax cuts were actually tax hikes in the middle class. She said, the average tax refund is down about $170 compared to last year. Let's call the president's tax cuts what it is, a middle-class tax hike to line the pockets of already wealthy corporations and the 1%, Harris tweeted that afternoon. The tweet was referring to an Internal Revenue Service, IRS report, showing that the average tax refund was down 8% compared to last year. Boy, talk about a non sequitur that turns out to be nonsensical and misleading, wrote fact checker Glenn Kessler. Thankfully, Kessler notes that the size of a tax refund has nothing to do with whether someone paid more taxes. The tax law enacted by Trump changed withholding tables, and even though the IRS told people to update their W-4 forms, most Americans didn't. About 80% of all taxpayers received a tax cut thanks to the law, according to the Tax Policy Center. Because the withholding tables changed, Americans' paychecks were bigger, meaning they kept more of their own money. But when that happens, it will also, in most cases, mean one gets a smaller refund. Isn't that really funny? Let's break this down. If you pay less in taxes, okay, your refund will be smaller too, because it's proportional to the percentage you paid in general. So when people get their paychecks, they keep more of it. But she's conflating a refund with the amount that's actually being paid to the government. Just wrong. So is that a lie? Okay, well, lie requires intent, and I'm reticent to say that someone is lying when they could just be wrong. People often say that Trump lies all the time. It's like, well, hold on, man. Maybe Trump just doesn't know what he's talking about. Or maybe you're misconstruing what he's saying. There's a phenomenon of people in media to take things literally. My favorite was during the debate with Hillary Clinton. Trump claimed that Hillary acid washed her server. Clearly, he meant that she rigorously wiped the server clean. NBC, I believe it was, fact-checked him saying she didn't use a corrosive substance. They said it was false. She didn't use a corrosive substance on her server. Like anyone actually believed that, okay? So this is what we see now with, essentially Kamala Harris misconstruing some information, and the assumption is she's a liar. Okay, well, hold on. I mean, I understand there's a difference between Trump and the server thing. He was making a point. He was just like using an analogy. Kamala Harris might just not, she's just not, doesn't understand what she's talking about, okay? And that's fair. We can either say that Kamala Harris has no idea what she's talking about and she didn't understand basic tax systems, which is a criticism as it were, or she was lying. Well, let's see what they say. Though few people look at it this way, a smaller tax refund means you gave less of a loan to the U.S. government over the course of the year. Ideally, you should end up with no refund or tax dues, Kessler wrote. Basically, imagine if they withheld 50% of your paycheck, a huge number. At the end of the year, they gave you back 90% of what they held. You'd then say, wow, look how big your refund is. It's a tax cut. No, you gave 50% to the government. The fact checker then goes back to the second part of Harris's tweet, where she claims taxes were raised on middle-class Americans so the wealthy could get more money. As we have explained before, any broad-based tax cut is going to mostly benefit the wealthy because they already pay a large share of income taxes, according to Treasury Department data. The top 20% of income earners paid 95.2% of individual income taxes in 2017. The top 10% paid 81%. The top 0.1% paid an astonishing 24.1% of taxes, Kessler wrote. Basic math. Well, I don't want to go on too long, so we'll end this one here. I've got one more video coming up in a few minutes, and I will see you then.